Hello again, I am Jim Bob and welcome back to Lone Oak Farm. Currently you can see I am cultivating away here on the bottom of field 49. This was our soybean field last year, or one of our soybean fields. I'm just kind of working these edges before I get a worker to finish this bit off for me. I've got him to do part of the field already. It is the first day of spring and ground temperatures have gone up a little bit. They're now 3 degrees. We are inside the planting window for our crops now, for wheat and for barley and canola. Although the temperatures aren't quite high enough for things to grow, we are inside that planting window, so I could theoretically plant today and be absolutely fine with my wheat, barley and canola. It just wouldn't start growing until the ground warms up a little bit more. But because we're in that window, the crop isn't going to wither and die. Or at least that's how seasons is supposed to work. Sometimes, depending on the map, it can sometimes be a little bit screwy, but that is essentially what is supposed to happen. If I plant today, because we're inside that planting window for those crops, they will be fine. They just won't start growing until temperatures rise a little bit more. In terms of jobs to do today, we have obviously this field that needs to be cleaned off, and then our other soybean field that still needs cleaning is field 48. We still need to clean that field off as well. And then we are currently ploughing away on our 2 new chaffing fields, fields 5 and 6 as well. I'm going to work it up there, ploughing in that crop and giving us a stage of fertilizer bonus. For ploughing in an existing crop on those fields that we've purchased. So once those are cleaned off, we can then obviously get a little bit closer to having all of our fields prepped and ready. Apart from these 2 sort of soybean fields, they are the only other 2 fields that need any kind of work doing to them to get them at least basically ready. Obviously we ploughed a lot of fields yesterday. We got 51, 53 and 54 all ploughed and prepped and ready. And we could plant directly on those, but as you know, if you're a long time viewer of the channel, I don't like sort of seeding on a field that's ploughed with just a plough texture if the seeder isn't a direct drill seeder. Now with our Pronto that was, and I would have had no issue with that whatsoever, but because our YP2425A is not a direct drill seeder, I'm going to end up cultivating those ploughed fields first just to get them to this kind of ground texture before we run over with them with the seeder. It's not a necessary thing gameplay wise, it's just a personal preference. I like to kind of respect the rules a little bit in terms of when I say the rules, I kind of like to respect the field transitions. So even though we could just as I say plant on ploughed furrows with a non-direct drill seeder, I would prefer to have that field cultivated first and then plant on the cultivated soil, rather with a non-direct drill seeder such as our YP2425A, rather than just seeding directly. It's just a personal preference. It doesn't affect gameplay in any way, shape or form. It's just something I prefer to do. So as we can see, he is now busy running around on this field again. We'll probably have to come back and help him out again in a moment. Let's jump back over and check in on our worker over here. So you can see I've got a worker running this rather than doing it myself, because this is actually at stage 2 growth. So if I were to drive over this, I would flatten the crop and damage it, and then I wouldn't get the fertilizer bonus for the wheel tracks. I would leave tracked areas all the way up and down this field where I would not be getting that extra stage of fertilizer for chewing this crop up. So that's why I have a worker doing this. You can see there are the odd patch here and there where rocks are nearby, where the driver is pulling up a little bit short. We can easily sort of cover those ourselves afterwards, and once this field is done, we'll be hopping over to the other side of the road and we'll be taking care of our small field, field 5. So you can see there we've got the animal dealership, and then right next to the dealership, or right above that, is field 5. That's our small little field, which we'll also be putting corn chaff on as well. So we'll have 2 good sized fields, in total combined amount of land that we'll be able to chaff corn on, and then take directly almost into the BGA, literally just around the corner, and we'll be in the BGA. It'll really speed up our loose silage operation for next year. So that's what's going on right now. As I say, we will try and get some planting done today, but if we can't get it done, we've still got plenty of time. It's not like there's a sudden rush to get everything planted today. So we've got plenty of time over the next 5 or 6 days to get everything in the ground and prepped and ready. And on top of that, we also today, depending on the weather, because it is raining at the moment, the sun came up and it lasted for about 15 minutes. It came up and immediately started to turn a bit grey and overcast, and we had 15 minutes of sunlight, and then the rain came, heavens opened and gone. So it's been a very miserable kind of start to the day. And the longer it rains, the more moisture the ground is soaking up, and if it gets rains for too long, then there's a risk that that field that we're going to be building on could become too soggy, could become too boggy and muddy, and I don't want to rut that field to pieces. So if it rains too much longer, we may have to postpone our building plans, our construction plans. We'll obviously be conferring with the construction guy who's on his way over to us and see what he says, but it's possible we may end up waiting another day and building the shelter tomorrow instead. I'd like to get it done today if we can, so that I can then start plotting out exactly where our trees are going to go and how many trees we're going to fit and all that good stuff. So yeah, it's going to be quite interesting to see all that kind of take shape, I think. But I'm going to carry on sort of supervising my 2 workers, making sure that these guys are doing a good job. And as you can see, we're not far from moving over to field 5, and if that crop is in the same state, again, we'll have to get a worker to do it. But if not, we'll actually do field 5 ourselves. So I'll catch up with you in a little while, and hopefully we'll be in a clearer position of what's going to happen with our shed construction. I think the rain might be stopping. Yeah, it is. Look, the rain is stopping. Oh, that's excellent stuff. So the sky's going to brighten up. It's only been raining for about maybe 2.5 hours. Not that long, really, in the grand scheme of things. Just a little over 2 hours. So that shouldn't impede our construction work in any way, shape or form, hopefully. We are due for the arrival of the foreman, the surveyor that we spoke to yesterday. He'll be turning up very soon on our farm within the sort of next 15 minutes or so. Just getting ready to switch this over onto field 5, and then we'll head back to the farm and we'll deal with him and go check on the ground, make sure everything's okay, and then get the construction crew in and we'll start building our shed. So I can't wait for that. That's going to be good fun. But let's deal with this field first of all. So again, we're getting these little bits here because of this little... Oh, it's almost like a dried up riverbed, a little dried up creek bed over here. I don't know if that is genuinely what this is, if it's an old dried up creek bed or if it's just, one of those strange collections of rocks that seem to have, formed. And some natural sort of deformation in the ground, but I do think that is a sort of a dried up creek bed. Just the way it kind of moves and flows a little bit, you do get that kind of visual impression that there was once a water source that went through there. I wonder if it's part of Beaver Creek, or a tributary of Beaver Creek, or something that fed into Beaver Creek. It'll be interesting to see. Might have to do a little bit of research into that. But yeah, we'll manually do this little strip here, and then we'll move across the road, we'll get set up on field 5, and then we'll head back to the farm and we'll speak to the surveyor. Oh, and there's that blue sky coming out, look. Beautiful. Beautiful views on this map. Uncluttered views. They're not over the top, lots and lots of scenery just dominating every single angle. It's spaced out so beautifully, this sort of region, that you don't have competing, you don't have too much going on in the background, which I think is something that some map makers can sometimes be a little guilty of, is you know, going a little bit too crazy with the background scenery, and you end up with just, you know, wall to wall, you know, scenic locations. And you don't get these big open views like this, and it's nice to have a little bit of a variety. I think it's quite refreshing to see these open views here like this. So let's get this. Ooh, that's a nasty. That's nasty there. Had no idea that was there like that. Yeah, we're definitely going to have to do a headland at this end, or else we're going to drive into that every time. So we'll lose a little bit here on the corner just to get onto the edge of the field. We'll get the worker to do the headlands, and then we'll turn him round and we'll get him going up and down the field. Might have to come back and just tag the very end of this field, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think I will. I think I'll have to tag the very edge of the field. He's not going to go all the way, is he? There we go. So let's lift the plough. Let's go back and do that again. There we go. Yeah. You can see we're actually getting that little extra furrow. And now, look at that. It's a beautiful, beautiful, bright, sunny day. And the trees, you can see, have started to grow back their luscious green leaves. I wasn't expecting that to happen so soon. Obviously, that happened last year because it was the Italy Geo. But I thought this year, you know, with the Oregon Geo, we might have to wait a little bit longer for the foliage to return. But no, it's here. Day one, look, just as it was before. That's kind of cool. Let's see, can I do it from here? Will it let me hire a worker from here? Yes, it will. Excellent stuff. So now I'm not losing any on that little bit there. So there, yeah, he's going to carry on working away here. We're going to head back to the farm, and I will see you when we get there. So you can see the surveyor's van is here. He's waiting for us inside the office. So let's pop in and have a chat with him and sort out what needs to be done. So we're finished ploughing. We've got all those two chaffing fields both done and finished off now. And the construction crew has been hard at work, and they have finished building our shed frame for us. So it's time for us to go and take a look at the finished product and see exactly what it is that we have available for us. We'll also need to start ferrying equipment over there once we're happy with everything as well. The crew has now left the farm. They've moved on. They've got another job lined up for the afternoon. But they have said any problems, give us a call. We'll come back and we'll fix whatever needs fixing. Or if you need any additional work, needs to be done, then obviously give us a call and we'll give you a quote for that as well. So let's get off the main road. There we go. Again, having to hug the inside of that road there, the inside of the curb, just because we didn't want to avoid causing any damage to oncoming traffic with this plough. It's the only drawback to this is that it doesn't really fold up that much. It's literally just the very edges. So on these slightly narrower laned roads, you really do have to be careful with oncoming traffic. You've got to be almost half off the road just to avoid any kind of crash or collision. But we'll take this back to the farm, we'll jump in our pickup and we'll head on down and take a look at our brand new shed. And there we go, there is our nice little shed there. You can see they've even put in a little pathway here for us. We're going to be building a pathway of our own probably around the edge of the field as well, but this is I might have to just put a little bit of grass just here on this little dark bit here, just to stop that looking quite so rough like that. But here we go, this is our shed. So we have this nice kind of bay here. We also have a little bay here, and now the reason I've gone for these two bays like this shed here, we open these doors up. This is where we're going to be storing our manure. So that's going to be stored in here. And then just close that back up again. In this section here, I'm going to be storing my 1455. We're going to relocate that from our sheep farm and bring it over here. That's going to become our orchard tractor. So we'll have that here with a front loader and a bucket of some kind. And then around here, what we'll do, in this bay here, this is where we'll be storing the trailer, our Joskin KTP trailer. And we'll also be storing our water trailer just here as well. One thing we are going to probably need to do is have a water source installed in some way, shape or form. Now, I'm not sure whether to go with getting a large water tank and then having those, having that here that we can then draw from, or whether to actually install like a windmill of some kind and have that here where we can actually just top up whenever we need it. I don't know yet. I'll have to have a think about that, but we may possibly put down a couple of big water containers and then draw from those whenever we need to. We do have the 32,000 litre trailer back at the main farm, which we'll be using to ferry water from the ponds and by the cabin to our animals as and where we need them. So there's nothing to stop us from bringing it down here and topping up a couple of water butts down here as well. That is something else that we could consider doing. So yeah, that'll be kind of cool. And I'm very, very happy with this nice little shed that we have here. It works very, very nicely, I think, and it gives us a way to repurpose and put our 1455 into action a little bit more frequently as well. So let's get back on with the rest of the planting and cultivating jobs that we need to get done. Our worker has stopped on field 49, so we are going to have to go and get that restarted, and then we'll start doing some seeding. Just getting our Magnum cleaned down after the ploughing session before we hook up to the seeder. I've already cleaned the plough off itself. Let's go and park this up. Get this backed into its little home here. We might not need this again this year, but if we do end up taking on any more land either this year or next year, then we will definitely need this again. Wonderful little piece of kit that. It's saved us so much time already getting everything done. So what I'm going to do now is drive through here. I'm just going to open this door up, because we'll be driving our seeder through this building so that we can get it refilled. But I'm also going to grab this seed tank here. We still have this because it's full. I didn't want to sell it with 1,500 litres of seed in it. That's just wasting quite a lot of seed. So we'll get this used up first, and then once that is used up, then we'll probably end up selling the front seed tank. We won't need it anymore. So once the seed is used up, we'll get rid of it, but there's no point wasting, as I say, 1,500 litres of seed. That's a lot of seed. That's several thousand. So we might as well take full advantage of that. Here we go. This is our first ever run with the seeder. Now, someone has suggested that I do hook up a rear weight to help improve my turning circle if I'm having issues catching the rear wheel. Well, as you can see, it's not really a turning circle issue that I'm having at the moment because of the because I'm catching on those rear wheels. It's kind of catching a little bit on the frame itself. It's catching on the harness. So I mean, I could try running a rear weight. I have got one. Let me just see if that is actually going to help us, because I should be able to hitch up to the back with this weight. I can do it with some trailers, so let's see if it'll let us do it with the Cedar as well. And if that's the case, it means I can do what I want to do, which is put twin wheels on my tractor. I like to run twins when I'm planting. Will this connect up? No, it won't. Okay, so we'll just have to be really careful with our turning rate. But let's get some twins fitted to this. And then once those are on, we'll be able to get our ploughing done properly. So I'm going to back this into the workshop here to get the twins fitted. And then we'll start putting some wheat down on fields 30 and 35. Alright, there we go. Twins are fitted. Let's reconnect. Let's check our clearance. See, again, it's not an issue of the wheels hitting. It's more a question of the 3-point harness itself is probably the thing that causes us to collide. So we just have to take wide turns with this Cedar. But we are going to we need to reseed. We need to actually put seed in it, don't we? That would help. All right, let's drive through the shed the other way. We are going to do wheat first of all. We'll do our 2 wheat fields, fields 30 and 35. And there we go, a little over 7,000 litres of seed. 7,300. It's an awful lot. 5,800 is the capacity of the Cedar itself, and then obviously that extra 1,500 from that front tank. So it's going to be a while before we need to refill again. Probably should have just used the seed tank first of all. And let's get our Cedar unfolded. And there we go, that's our first bit of seed being put into the ground for year 2. So the basic plan for our fields is wheat on fields 30 and field 35. On 32/33, because don't forget that is a joined field now. That field and field 34 will be canola. And then we'll be doing barley on fields 45, which is currently being cultivated, and 43, which was a canola field last year, so we need to give that a bit of a refresh. So that's why we're putting barley in there this year. And then we'll be doing corn on fields 48 and 51. And then fields 49 and 53 and 54, they will be our soybean fields. So we should get some really good yields across there. Corn was the surprise to me. I didn't think it would do that well. Now, it's possible that the pricing may change with a different geo. That is something else that we have to consider, is that the prices we got last year might not be the same this year. I'm kind of hoping that we're going to get strong wheat and barley prices regardless, because they are sort of the main crops of this region. At least the main sort of grain crops. So it'd be very interesting to see what kind of pricing we do get at the end of the year when we come to sell. And I'm hopeful that we'll actually get some really good prices. The only thing I'm slightly wary of is that maybe we won't get quite as good a soybean price with the Oregon geo that we would have had with the Italy geo, which would have been somewhere in the region of 2,500 per 1,000 litres. So hopefully everything will be fine. We'll get a really strong price still. I don't know if prices are dependent or vary dependent on the geo. I know obviously weather conditions do, and planting windows can change, and things like that, but I don't know about crop prices. I've never really paid that much attention to any potential differences in price on different geos, because it's very rare I'll use more than one geo on the same map. I might use a geo on one map, and then a different map I'll use a different geo, and you never know if the geo has anything to do with crop prices. You know that maps tend to change crop prices based on the map, and you only have to look at things like Lawfolds. Way back when one of the very first maps we got, Lawfolds, all the prices were jacked up on top of the usual kind of prices that you would get on a medium or a hard file, because the fields were very expensive. So to help combat how long it would take you to earn the money to buy those fields, the map maker actually made the crop prices a little bit better than they would normally be. And we've seen that as well on other maps like Drummard. The silage price on Drummard is 4 times higher than it is on pretty much every other map. So again, you know that the map itself is directly responsible for variations in price, but I've never noticed whether or not the geo has any bearing on the price at all. So if anyone actually knows that for definite and can give me an example of that, please do let me know in the comments. I would be really, really curious about that, and see if it is something that I'm just kind of guessing about, or if I have actually stumbled onto something here and that is actually a genuine thing. I'd love to hear from you if you know anything further about that. Alright, let's concentrate on getting the longer runs up and down first of all. And then once we're done there, we'll move across onto the next field, which will be field 30, and we'll get that planted with wheat as well. I've really enjoyed seeding this field. It's been a really nice, relaxing process so far. It's been nice and straightforward, no issues. It's been nice and smooth like this, up and down, up and down. I haven't been drifting all over the place like I tend to do. I'm really enjoying using this seeder. This whole kind of setup here has been incredibly stable, and I'm just getting through this field at a nice, good, reasonable pace. I'm so glad I decided to switch to this seeder for year 2. I did toy with the idea of maybe going with a Terminator, for example. I think this farm isn't quite big enough really to justify a Seed Hawk, but the Terminator I considered. But we didn't really do that much in the way of fertilizing last year in the grand scheme of things, and we'd be doing even less this year, with some of our oilseed radish and stuff, and the fact that we just wouldn't need to fertilize some of our fields, like this one here, for example. This field and field 30, they don't need any stages of fertilization. They already have 3 stages because we planted radish with a seeder that fertilized. So before we even had the this wheat in the ground, those fields are already at stage 3 fertilization. So that's limited how much fertilizing we needed to do. But going forward, I'd like to do cover crops on this field, so on this farm. But having a seeder that doesn't fertilize means that my sprayer is no longer redundant. We actually need to use it. And we didn't use at all the Kuhn Axis either last year. I may end up selling that and just sticking with the sprayer. But yeah, something else we bought that we never used is the Kuhn Axis, fertilizer spreader. So we could look at selling that. I mean, we've had it for a year and it's depreciated, so we're not going to get full price back for it. We're going to actually probably make a fair bit of a loss on that, but hasn't been used at all on the farm. Not a single hour has been put on that thing. So we could potentially look at selling that. But yeah, I like the concept of actually doing more spraying, because I had fun using that sprayer last year, and I didn't want to find myself in a position where just doing cover crops at the end of every harvest would mean I would never ever need to fertilize again. So the combination of switching to a non-fertilizing seeder like this means that we can actually do proper fertilizing and spraying, and still it's still needed. It's not something that's done automatically for us just by planting, and I'm quite pleased with that. We've used up a lot more seed than I thought as well. Look, we're down to what, 4,900 litres. We used up a lot more seed than I was expecting, getting that field up and running. So let's move over to field 30. Same thing again, we'll do a border around the field and then we'll start running. I think we'll run across on this one rather than up and down, just because the way this one's shaped. Oops. Bit of a slide there. Just crested the hill at a bit of a weird angle and it pitched me into a slide. Well, let's get wheat planted on here as well. And again, this field, we don't need to fertilise this field. It's already at stage 3, thanks to planting radish with a fertilising seeder, our Pronto. That was stage 1. Then was it? No, that was stage 2, wasn't it? Actually, thinking about it, if I just stop for a second. Yeah, the stage 2. They would have been stage 3 if we'd planted with the Pronto. That was it. They would have been stage 3. So we do actually have to do some fertilising on these fields. I was getting confused for a second then, trying to work it out in my head, the steps. Stage 1 was obviously doing the planting itself. Stage 2 was then cultivating the radish, and stage 3, if this was a Pronto, would then be seeding again, and that would be all 3 stages. But obviously we got rid of the Pronto. This does not fertilise, so we still have to put on that final layer of fertiliser, and I'm more than happy to do that. It means I'm going to pay a little bit in terms of fertiliser costs, and our costs will go up potentially, but I mean, we still had to pay for the fertiliser in our seeder last year, so it's not going to go up that much, if at all, really. We're just changing from using solid fertiliser in our fertiliser spreader, in our planter, to liquid fertiliser in our sprayer. That's the only difference. It's the only change. So no major difference there. And what fields did I say I was going to do barley on? It was fields 43 and 45. Well, 45 looks like a worker has just finished cultivating on that field. 43 is all ready to go, so we can plant on 43, and we'll get our worker up and running on field 49. No, 48, sorry. We'll get him to cultivate that field for us. That's the last of our fields that needs cleaning off. Everything else is clean and prepped and ready. It either needs just furrows that need to be cultivated just for personal preference, and that's all my soybean stuff anyway, so I can't plant those for another 2 days. I've got plenty of time to get that cultivating done, and that's it. That's all that's left. So we're in a really good position going forward. It gives us plenty of time over the next few days, over spring really, to concentrate on getting that orchard up and running. We can start tracking out sort of a path around the orchard. We can start plotting where the trees are going to go and get those purchased and in position. And we can also get all our equipment moved down there and set up ready and waiting. We'll have to go and purchase some manure and get that into storage. We've got a manure purchase point at the Green Oak Wool Company, Green Oak Wool. There's a manure sell point there. There's also a manure purchase point there now as well. I've added the manure purchase point there, so not only can we sell manure there, we can also buy manure from there as well. In fact, I just realised, I can just see, I've just missed this little edge on the next field there. There we go, just missed that corner slightly as I turned a little bit too sharply, so just tag that. And this is me for the next 15-20 minutes or so, just running back and forth on this field, getting this nicely seeded. So I'll carry on doing this, and I'll catch up to you once it's done. Getting close to finishing this field off as well, down to just about 2,000 litres of seed, so we'll be tapping into our seed tank at the front here before this field is finished, I think, given how quickly we have been burning through this seed. And we've still got time in the day to get stuff done as well. It's nearly 4:45, so still got a good couple of hours of time left before it starts to get too dark. I think if we kind of wrap up probably somewhere around about 8 o'clock, that gives us just over 3 hours to do some more work, so we can get at least one more field seeded, possibly even two. It depends on the size of the fields, but I think probably one is a bit more realistic. Just this little bit and then one more pass and we'll be done. Oh, we're going to have just over the seed tank limit, so we'll have a tiny little bit left in our seeder, but we will use up the seed tank, and then tomorrow we'll head over to Manning's and we'll take this in and we'll get rid of it, and we'll also probably take the Axis as well, and we'll just use that money to help manage our farm debt, which is creeping up. It's close to 600,000. Obviously the expense of the shed and contracting costs and just our other little purchases that we've made, it's all adding up a little bit. Those two extra fields were an extra 80,000 that we hadn't initially accounted for as well. So and then of course we've got our seed costs and fertilizer costs, which I hadn't factored into my calculations on where my farm level, my farm debt level would be. So we've got that to take into consideration as well. There we go. So let's move over and we'll attack field 43, and we'll start putting barley on field 43. You can see our worker is busy on field 48 cultivating away for us. And that's the first two of our fields done, and that's our wheat planted for this year. Let's just change the crop there to barley. Really looking forward to harvest time this year. I think we could make potentially a huge amount of money, with these extra fields now and these increased field sizes. We stand to make quite a lot of cash indeed. So again, with this field here, I'm going to do a border because of the tree. So I'll get lined up, drop that down, and we'll do a border around the entire field, and that I think will use up, you know, a fair chunk of this seed, and we'll run as far as we can before we need to go back and top up. And as I say, we're not going to top up the front tank again. We're just going to get rid of that tomorrow. So once it's empty, we'll make sure it's cleaned off, we'll put it aside, and then we'll take that to Manning's and sell it. Hopefully we'll get a decent amount of cash for it. I mean, it wasn't horrendously expensive to start with, but it has been used a fair bit. It was obviously a lot more necessary when we were using the Pronto that only held 3,000 litres of seed. This holds nearly double that, so there's no real need to add in, you know, an extra 1,500 on top of that when we're carrying close to 6,000 litres in this seeder. There just isn't a need for us to expand our storage even more. Let's make the turn. And of course this side of the field I'm going to try and run in just a straight line, because this side of the field tapers and cuts in to the side of the field. So if we could just kind of hold a straight line, it should hopefully make things a little bit easier. So we'll keep it nice and straight down here. Make sure we're tagging the edge of the field. Kind of lining up my wheels against the grain of the soil on the field. You can kind of see those lines, and I'm using those as a guideline for where my wheels need to be. I've tried using these, for whatever reason these just don't seem to work very well on some maps. I don't know what it is. I think it's to do with the soil texture underneath, and because this is a custom plough texture, it's harder to see than the standard sort of Giant's plough texture. Of course, if we had a direct drill we couldn't do this, because we would risk planting on the field next to us, on that grass field. But because this is not a direct drill, and of course because we don't own the grass field next to us, we don't have that issue. Got a little hill to kind of crest here. Be careful so I don't damage the seeder going over this. There we go. Drop that down. Run along this bottom edge, and this is so we don't accidentally, you know, risk maybe catching field 48. I mean, we're not going to get there. Yeah, by the time we're done on here, our worker, you can see him there, look in the background, he's not going to be all the way over to this part of the field by the time we're done here. We'll finish this, I think, before he gets there. It depends how long it takes us to get back and refill the seeder. You can see now the seeder itself is empty. We're into the 1,500 in the front tank, so that is starting to go down. And again, when we get to the end here, we'll do a sort of a 270-degree turn. There we go. And now we'll complete our border and just start running up and down the field. So a nice easy afternoon in terms of work. It's just nice and simple, driving at 9 miles an hour, keeping everything nice and calm and controlled, and just getting the first of our fields planted and ready. We have one field left to do tomorrow, that's barley. We'll also have the 2 canola fields to do tomorrow. That'll be tomorrow's kind of planting lineup. We have to wait until day 3 at the earliest to be able to plant our corn. And the first thing we'll try and get done is make sure that the corn is planted on our chaffing fields. I want that grown at the earliest possible stage so that we can get that chaffed in the summer before it's fully grown. Obviously we don't have to let it get all the way to the final growth stage and harvestable. We can get it in the final growth stage. We don't have to let it get to the point where it's fully grown and ready to harvest. Yeah, we can chaff it at that final stage. I don't know if it actually produces a higher yield of chaff. Someone has suggested that it has. I have never done a side-by-side comparison, so I don't genuinely know if you get more chaffing corn in that final growth stage compared to, fully grown corn. I'd be curious to find out at some point. I might have to do a test and actually try that out, but to the best of my knowledge, it shouldn't affect the yield. I haven't seen anywhere officially stating that it changes the yield. As I say, I have had one person mention in the comments that you get more if you chaff in that final stage of growth. So that's something that we could perhaps try. We've got 2 fields. We could maybe on the small field that we've got, field 5, we could chaff part of that field, and then in the final growth stage, and then let the rest grow to its final stage, and then chaff the second half of the field, and see if there's any difference in the yield of a single pass. See if we get more chaff or less chaff, or just the same amount. I think we'll do that for the purposes of science. We'll do that. So that'll be interesting, and then that'll give us an indication of what to do in year 3, whether to wait until the very end of the life of the corn, or chaff it before it's harvestable. That'll be some useful information out there, I think. How much seed do we have left? Just 800 litres, so a couple more passes, and then this front tank will be empty. Not too long to go, so I'm going to carry on sort of running up and down on this field, and once it's done I will check in with you, and that will probably be the end of the day, so I'll catch up with you in just a little while. On the final pass of this field here, this is our barley that we're planting here on field 43, and once this is done we're going to turn in for the night. So you can see our workers made some really strong progress on field 49 in front of us. That still needs to be finished off. We'll let him continue to run a little bit longer, but we may have to come back and finish that field off tomorrow. And there we go. Not a bad start to spring there. We've got 3 fields seeded. We've cleaned off the last 2 fields that we had that needed ploughing. We've got those done. We've also cleaned off one of our 2 remaining soybean fields that needed cleaning, and we're in the process of cleaning the other one. And we've also constructed the shed for our orchard, so we can start getting manure in there and start getting our equipment down there and start figuring out exactly where those trees are going to go, and start making some money. So really good news in that respect, and we'll be able to really start to bolster our income with trees. And we'll have to pay for the manure, but it shouldn't be that expensive, and we'll probably we'll get the water for free here at our main farm. We may have to pay for some kind of water tank system to be installed. I'll start looking into options for that, but for now we can at least just run trailers back and forth from our water supply that we have just behind the farm, So yeah, we're looking to be in a really good position going forward, and I'll be interested to see just how much money we can actually generate from the orchard itself. Obviously, the larger it is, the more we're going to get. So it'll be very interesting to see how that works indeed. And our sheep are in lambing season. We started the day, well, we ended the day yesterday with 58 sheep. We started the day almost immediately getting a new lamb in. We went up to 59. We might possibly be up to 60 sheep by now. I'll check that in just a second. Which means our numbers in our sheep field are going to go up. There'll be more food that they'll be consuming. We'll be fine in that respect. We've got plenty of time to be able to get some hay, put aside for them, or we could just feed them grass direct if we needed to as well. We've got plenty of time to get all that sorted though. But it does mean that our wool production will increase as well. We'll have more sheep available to actually generate wool. So we could be looking at some really good wool hauls later in the year as well. And if we can get a really good, great demand, then we could stand to make quite a bit of money from wool, which would be nice. Let's take a look, see how many we've got. Yes, we're up to 60. Look at that. The breeding rate is 13 and a half hours at the moment. So we'll have another one overnight, and then in the early hours of the morning, we'll be well on our way to sheep number 62 as well. So we'll have to go and feed them tomorrow. You can see that their food is getting a little low. Their water's definitely getting low, and obviously we're going to have to tidy up after them. But it's great to see that their numbers are going up. So that's it from me today. I think a very good day here on our farm. We've achieved quite a bit, and I'm happy with the progress we've made. And I'll be back with another episode of Lone Oak very soon.